The other day, I was reading an article about adultery that I happened to see on an internet news site. It cited figures that 37% of men and 22% of women surveyed admitted to having affairs. That figure shocked me. Not so much because of the number of cheating spouses, but because it made me wonder who the hell these men were dating. The facts speak for themselves. Unless there are 7% homosexuals among cheating men, the numbers should be relatively the same. After further calculations and population studies, I concluded that there are about 33 million men cheating on their wives and about 22 million women. Based on the fact that it takes two to tango, I had to conclude that there must be about an equal number of unfaithful women or one super slut who has slept with 10 million men. How am I doing? The difference leads to another startling conclusion. Which one, you ask? Let me tell you what the numbers tell me. Consider the fact that there are about 105 million women over the age of 18 in the United States, and of those, 33 million, or about 32%, have cheated. If you compare that to the 22% who admitted to cheating in the survey, which is an astounding 10% difference, you can come to the conclusion that there are about 10 million lying, cheating, promiscuous wife sluts trying to pull the wool over their eyes regarding the survey. Check the numbers for yourself, I'll wait. See, it doesn't quite add up, does it? So if you assume my numbers match, you can take your chances and confront your wife about an infidelity you don't even suspect her of. And you'll have a 1 in 3 chance you'll be right. Does that scare you even a little bit? It should. My theory will probably seem distorted to all but 1 or 2 of you, but nobody believed Einstein at first, let alone Newton or Ron Popeil. Oh, hell. You know the guy who invented the Vegematic. The other day, I was across the street at my buddy Fred's house. We were fiddling with his lawnmower in the garage when I told him about my startling discoveries. He, poor dumbass, laughed at my words. Are you crazy, Albert? Do you have any idea how much trouble your lame scheme would cause if I asked Peggy if she was having an affair? I hadn't thought about it, but math doesn't worry about that. Fred was right. It would cause some upset. Besides, there was the lying whore factor to consider, and a confrontation wouldn't necessarily lead to the truth. I had a lot to think about, but had to find a way to prove the numbers. After Joanna, my wife, and I had dinner that night, I immediately headed to the family computer. Now that the kids are grown and on their own, I don't have to worry about anyone stumbling across my data, since Joanna doesn't even know where the power button is. I started working on a spreadsheet to prove, at least to myself, that I had something important. I started by listing all the spouses in the cul-de-sac. There were 10 houses, each with married couples living in them. 20 names made the list, starting with mine and Joanna's. I methodically went through the list and eliminated them one by one, or not if I had to prove infidelity. I knew for a fact that I had never cheated on Joanne, so I put an F next to my name to indicate fidelity. I then moved down the list and put another F next to Joanne's name. I then drew a map with 10 houses, labeled my house number 1, and continued to label it clockwise until I got to number 10. I took all known factors into account and went directly to house number 5, Salvatore and Ethel. Sal had bragged repeatedly about sleeping with his secretary. I went into the spreadsheet and entered a big red A next to his name. Damn, this was going to be easy. I'd have proof of my theory in no time. For a few moments, I thought about the neighborhood gossip. There were rumors, but I wanted to base my conclusions on facts to make them more scientific. I decided it would be best to use first-hand information, as in Sal's case, or eyewitness accounts. As you might guess, this created a whole new set of problems. I couldn't wander around the neighborhood and ask others if they were fooling me, could I? I was going to have to find information on each of the fraudulent bastards. For the next week, I searched day and night for information on how people cheat. The internet turned out to be a bottomless abyss of stories about cheaters and their unsuspecting spouses. I read hundreds of stories about women who enjoyed humiliating their husbands, and strange as it may seem to you, some husbands seemed to enjoy it more than their wives. The deeper I dug, the more was revealed. Mistresses, boy toys, swapping, cream cakes, cuckolds, prostitution, and the list goes on and on. Men do it, women do it, the birds and the bees even do it. I began to wonder if I was the only one on Earth who didn't do it. This brought up another new problem: suspicion. It was about then that I began to show the first signs of trouble. Reading so many stories about sex made me feel frisky. Joanna happily accepted my impulses and even tried to talk me into trying a few new things in bed. Joanna and I were not adventurous, at least I never was. She seemed to want me to indulge in more creative lovemaking that I hadn't even considered before. Suspicion is an evil thing. It plays tennis with your brain cells. On every face I looked into, I saw a big red A. Yes, even on Joanna's face. There would be no work on Project X until I was sure Joanna wasn't part of the 30-something%. Over the next few days, I used many of the methods I had read about to determine if Joanna was really cheating on me. I reviewed her phone records. I searched the house relentlessly. Nothing. I looked for any sign of new sexy lingerie, just a new package of granny panties. I even went into the house at random hours during the day, but I ended up with one very tasty ham and cheese on rye bread. What the hell did all this trivia mean? It was starting to throw me off my game. I was starting to have trouble sleeping. Nightmares about Joanna with another guy were killing me, and I don't mean figuratively. I was losing weight. I started having pain in my upper chest and left arm. For the third night in a row, I lay awake watching Joanna sleeping peacefully. Around 4 in the morning, my left arm went numb. I reached out to my wife and gently shook her. Joanna, wake up." She opened her eyes as if in a fog. "What's wrong, baby? Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay," I replied. "What is it, Albert? Is it heartburn again? Would you like me to pour you an Alka-Seltzer?" Then I decided a direct approach would be best. "Joanna, I need to know, have you ever lied to me about anything? Let's see how she reacts when she's backed into a corner." "Well, of course, honey. I do it all the time," she replied calmly. "Aha! I knew it. I knew you were hiding something from me. How long, Joanna? And why? Why do you do it?" The sudden realization of this brought tears to my eyes. "I started right after we got married. I'm sorry, Albert, but I just wanted to diversify things a bit." "Oh my God, Joanna, how could you do this to me?" I exclaimed. "Albert, I've been doing this for over 20 years. It didn't bother you before," she reasoned. 20 years, oh my God. Jesus, Joe, 20 years. How often? She seemed awfully calm about the whole thing. I blacked out. "Well, I don't know, probably every week or two." Oh shit. 52 weeks a year averages out to, say, 40 times a year multiplied by 20 years? That's about 800 times. Ah, Joanna, how could you? "I'll stop if it means that much to you, honey. I used to do it for both of us, but I promised not to do it again," she said bashfully. "For heaven's sake, Joanna, haven't you ever thought about how I would feel? It's tearing me apart," I screamed. "Let me get you some Alka-Seltzer. You'll feel better in a few minutes," she consoled. "God damn it, you stopped drinking Alka-Seltzer. I'll never get over this. Can't you see what you've done to me, to us? Joanne, think about what you've done to the kids. At least think about them." "Well, they never seemed to mind, in fact. They always told me they liked it," she said. "The kids, too. It was much worse than I could have imagined. I suddenly felt sick, and I barely made it to the bathroom in time." Joanna jumped up and saw me dumping the last of my dinner down the toilet. "Oh my God, Albert, what have I done? I'm sorry. What have I done to you?" she said in tears. My world had collapsed. My meatloaf dinner was in the toilet bowl, and by golly, my marriage was floating there too in a cloud of partially digested mashed potatoes. My heart was broken, and I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. Joanna tried to help me up off the floor, seemed at least sorry. But was it too late? Hell, 800 times she'd cheated on me. When we made love, it was 2, 3, and even 4 times a night. Jesus Christ, it just kept getting worse. If I counted correctly, she'd betrayed me between 2,000 and 3,000 times. My knees were shaking, and I let Joanna help, but I didn't want to. I couldn't even imagine ever touching her again, that lying bitch. I woke up, the elephant replaced by a Volkswagen. The pain wasn't the same as before, but it was 10 times worse. Where? Shit, there were tubes and wires? I closed my eyes and stared at Joanna and her faceless lover. So many times in my life I'd counted on this woman. She had supported me when I was sick, been there for me when I was sad. How many times we talked about growing old together? How many times did she tell me how much she loved me? At least twice a day, in the morning and at night before bed. On my birthday, she always added 5 or 6 presents. At Christmas, a few more. And let's not forget that every time the kids did something special. She would smile that wonderful, proud, motherly smile and squeeze my hand. I love you so much, Albert. I was so proud to have her with me. She fixed the world when I couldn't do it myself. I had always thought of her as 1 in a million, and now it seemed she was 1 in 3. Albert, honey. I heard Joanna's voice. Daddy. Come on, Daddy. Open your eyes. It was little Al. Daddy, please. And so did Keith. They were all there, but why? Hadn't I suffered enough? I tried to move, but I couldn't. I tried to speak, but the tube in my throat wouldn't let me. I didn't want to see any of them here, and by the way, where the hell was this here? It wasn't my bed. Hell, it wasn't even my house. And who the hell was that little bald guy with the beady eyes? Probably a lover. Well, he just opened a whole can of shit. When I get out of this torture chamber, I'm in for one hell of a payback. I bet they tied me up to make me watch their depraved game they all play, but they picked the wrong guy to mess with. I pretended to be asleep, which wasn't that hard because I was so damn tired. When I woke up again, it was already dark and only Joanna was standing guard. I started working the restraints on my arms. Thank goodness they weren't too tight. Joanna was asleep in the chair next to the bed, so I had to be very quiet while I worked on the leather straps. Those bastards must have drugged me when I wasn't looking, but I've got news for them. They're having fun with the wrong guy. I'll take them all down one by one, starting with the bald freak in the white coat. Then I'll take care of the kids. Joanna will be last. I still can't believe she dragged my kids into this. My chest ached at the thought of little Al and my sweet Keith participating in their mother's sexual games. It took me another 2 hours to free myself from the bed and all the tubes and wires. They had obviously put a lot of effort into keeping me safe, and it looked like they had done this with someone before. Joanna was still asleep. Good. Now we need to find a way out of this place. I sprinted out into the hallway, trying to go unnoticed, which wasn't easy considering I was naked. The bastards had stolen my clothes too. What was that object? It was huge. I must have stumbled into some kind of professional cuckolding operation. There were dozens of rooms and elevators. My God, the police must know about this place. Damn, mop guy. Just act natural, Al. Maybe he won't notice. Whistle and just act cool. He's probably used to seeing naked guys walking around the hallways. Hey, kid, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Get dressed, pervert, he commanded. I was compromised, and now there was nothing left for me to do but run, which I did. I ran to the end of the hallway, to a dead end. On my way back, I ran past a guy who was mopping the floor. I needed to get to the elevator bank. That was my ticket to freedom. No, now they were watching me. I saw 2 female guards dressed in green pajamas approaching me. Albert! Yelled Joanna. I was trapped. There was nowhere to run. Well, almost nowhere. You'll never take me alive, I screamed. I turned and ran back to the guy with the mop. Hey, you asshole! I just mopped this floor, he yelled. There was only one way out, the window. My chest hurt like hell, and if I made it outside, I was going to make a doctor's appointment. A guy my age can never be too careful when it comes to his health, you know. I woke up in a hospital. My own doctor was there. The place looked just like the cucatorium. Hell, it was the same room. But Dr. Floyd was checking my heart and blood pressure, so I knew I wasn't in any danger. I must have been able to escape. What a relief. "What happened?" I asked. "You had a minor seizure, Al," he told me. "You call it minor?" said I with some confusion. "Yes, Albert. Thanks to modern medicine, we were able to clear the blocked artery with a small balloon. We call it an angioplasty," he stated. "No. I mean, what happened at that place? Did they get arrested? Did someone call the police?" "Al, you need to get some rest. You're probably still a little high. Joanna will explain it all to you." He nodded, inserting the needle into the IV tube and pushing the plunger. "Keep that rotten bitch away from me. I don't want her near me anymore." "Don't... you..." I passed out. The nurse said it was time to get me back on solid food, and that cheered me up a bit, as I realized it had been almost a week since my last meal. When my food was brought to me, my mouth nearly went dry at the prospect of chewing on something other than Jell-O. Meatloaf, one of my favorite dishes, was served. "They didn't put any onions or pepper in it, did they?" I asked the nurse. She just shook her head and went into the next room. I took a bite, and it was like cardboard. It was tasteless and in no way resembled Joanna's taste. I would miss the way she cooked. She knew what I liked. But a tasty meatloaf didn't mean I would put up with a cheating wife. Dr. Floyd advised Joanna to keep her distance for now. He didn't want to upset me until I had time to recover. I figured it was their mother who had spoiled the kids, so I didn't hold a grudge against them. Well, maybe just a little. Keith and Al Jr. came to discharge me from the hospital. Keith was the first to broach the subject. She asked bluntly, "Daddy, what are you and Mommy fighting about? I've never seen you raise your voice at her before, and now we're afraid we won't have a family if things continue the way they are." Little Al nodded in agreement. I stared at my hands looking for an answer. "Honey, your mom was... she was... shit." I couldn't even get the words past my throat. I was choking and ready to cry at the mere thought of it. Joanna insisted that we meet and talk about why I was so angry. Doesn't she realize what she's done? Our whole family was torn to shreds by her action, and she didn't understand why I was angry. There was no way I would have agreed to sit with her if she hadn't offered to cook my favorite dish. I felt bad that she invited the kids over. I wasn't at all in favor of having sexual conversations with them in the room, but if Joanna could handle it, I guess I could too. After all, they were adults and apparently knew more than I did or had some part in it. What a disgusting thought. It was decided that we would be civilized and eat first. Everything looked so delicious that I almost forgot why I had come. Joanna was an excellent cook and always knew my weaknesses, and with this dish, she outdid herself. That's what I thought until I took the first bite of the delicious-looking meatloaf. "What is this stuff?" I asked in utter disappointment. "It tastes like the crap they serve at the hospital." The kids agreed with my assessment. "I tried a different recipe. Given your condition, I thought it would be better not to add peppers and onions," she explained. "Peppers and onions? You've never added them before. You know how much I despise them." "Albert, darling, I've always used them. I know how you said you didn't like the texture, so I've always put them in the blender to disguise the bits." I was puzzled. Very puzzled. So I turned to the place in my mind where everything is clear and true. The numbers. I could only estimate, but over the years, as far as I could tell, Joanna must have served her meatloaf once every week or two. This equation was beginning to sound familiar. 800 times, and suddenly everything fell into place. Joanna, my dear, sweet wife, was seeing her lover on the day she was cooking my favorite dish. Suddenly, I was seized with rage. "You're seeing him again tonight, aren't you?" I slammed my fist down on the middle of the mashed potatoes. Joanna flinched. "With who? Albert, I'm worried about you. Maybe I should call Dr. Floyd." "That damn man you're sleeping with behind my back," I growled. "Dad?" shrieked Kit. "What the hell?" wheezed little Al. "Mom!" Keith gasped again. "I'm calling an ambulance! Your father has lost his mind!" exclaimed Joanna. After a short stay in the psychiatric ward, two things happened. First, it was carefully explained to me that in fact Joanna was not even close to being unfaithful to me. Of course, I was glad to have my loving family back, but it was with some reluctance that I agreed to the second part of my recovery. The bastards had taken my computer. "Okay, honey, just close your eyes and run your tongue right down the center," Joanna coaxed. I was willing to do anything for my beautiful wife to make her happy, but I never thought in a million years it would come to this. "Hey, that's not bad at all," I exclaimed in surprise. "Ooh, yeah, Albert, that's it. Put your face right down there," she purred. Juice dripped from her chin, and I said, "It's a little tart and sweet at the same time." I swiped my tongue, savoring her hot, wet treat. "That's it, Daddy. Come on," my baby kit insisted. "Gee, Mommy, I never expected to see Daddy do that," little Al added. I immersed myself in it again and couldn't believe how much I was enjoying it. The whole family watched me devour my first Philadelphia cheese sandwich, including peppers and onions. So, what did I take away from all of this? Well, I learned that I'm one of the lucky ones, that my family loves and supports me, even if I sometimes get carried away. I also learned not to ask obscure questions that could be misinterpreted. This can lead to misinterpretation and cause all sorts of trouble, as my friend Fred once advised. But the most enlightening thing has turned out to be that you don't need a computer to record research results. I use a notepad and a pencil, and I am now at number 5 on my list. The numbers look promising, but I'm not going to tell you what I found out and how. Not until the data is in, but I will say this: the numbers don't lie.